Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 2. And we are going to kick things off. I'm going to give you kind of an overview of a couple of different things that you're going to be doing in this class. I'm not going to be going over the details of how to do it. I want to go over the why so that you can kind of get a big picture as to what we're doing. So at this point, you've already brainstormed a little bit. And if you don't have your topic hammered out completely, that's fine, but you probably are getting pretty close to it, or you should. If you are really stuck and you're not sure, please reach out to me. I'm happy to have a conversation with you over Zoom and talk about some of your ideas, and we can figure out how to narrow it down and turn it into a project that you're going to be kind of enthusiastic to research, because it has to be something that means something to you. So I have 2 samples that I'm going to show to you today, because these are 2, this is basically these are the end result of what we're going to be doing. So when you're looking at the syllabus and you're like, what is an annotated bibliography? And what is this thing that I'm doing? I want to show you why we're doing it and what it means, so that when we get to that point and I show you how to do it, it kind of makes sense and it all fits into the puzzle piece. Again, we're building a house. We're starting with a foundation and we're working our way up. So let me share my screen with you. I'm going to start with this one. So you should be seeing, and I will be including this in the LMS, as well as I'll probably email it to you as well. I have this sample of what your finished paper is basically going to look like. So I kind of want to give you like a tour of that, for lack of a better phrase. Why are we doing this? So again, we're using APA format. I'm going to go into a lot more detail, and your book also goes into a lot more detail about APA format. But again, I'm going to be focusing a lot more on the why. So your paper will actually have your title here. It will say running head, and then in all caps, it will have your title up to 50 characters. If your title is longer than that, you're just going to go up to the 50 characters. And then you're going to have the title of your paper, your name, and then, of course, Carolina University. And then this sample really is very helpful, because you can just kind of use this as your template as you start writing. And it also helps you kind of shape up the body of your paper, because as you get ideas, feel free to copy and paste it right into this template. And it will be so much easier than like starting from scratch. And there's nothing worse than a blank piece of paper, right? And this gives you a lot of not only template as to what the paper should look like, but it also gives some content as to what each thing is. So some aspects of the paper will not, and if you go on to like OWL that I had directed you to, that will also, like, some pieces of it you're not going to use. You're probably not likely to have a whole lot of tables and all kinds of stuff in your paper, but you will have citations and references and things like that. So I did keep that. As we get further along, the formatting will be more important. For right now, I'm really more concerned about content. So what I'd like for you to do, and why I'm showing this to you now, is because I want you to start using the template and getting familiar with what your final paper project is going to look like, so that as you start developing ideas and start to write your outline, you can plug these things in so that you're not doing all this writing at the last minute. It should be kind of an evolving process. And then if it's done right, you should be writing as you go, and then using your final week or 2 just to proofread, make edits and things like that. You shouldn't be doing a lot of live typing in your last week or so, leading up to turning this in. It also takes a whole lot of stress off if you do it piece by piece, the way I'm suggesting. So there is some content even within this template that you can use, but basically you're going to have this title page, and then you're going to have your content. Again, this is the title of your paper, and then you're going to have a really great first paragraph, as I mentioned before, and then for each section, this part right here should be like a really great introduction. Should be like 1, 2, 3 paragraphs. It could be probably about as long as it shows here, where you're going to separate your ideas, with an indentation, separate paragraphs, but you really want to summarize your paper and drive the point home immediately. And then again, we're going to be going back to that outline for each heading, which could be your subtopics, it could be the points you want to make. However you have your paper organized, you're going to have a different heading level, and it really helps guide the reader from topic to topic, because again, let's pretend and it's true, I may not know what your paper is about. I work in this field, but I may not know specifically what your topic is about. You're the one that's doing the research. You're informing me. So you kind of have to hold my hand, and you have to walk me through your thought process. Don't assume that I know anything, and don't write it like you're writing it to your instructor. Write it like you're writing it to a friend of yours, or someone, a stranger that has no idea. Write it to someone who really doesn't have the background. You want to make your case. You want to give them all the information so that it tells a story, and that it's comprehensive. It makes sense. Leave the jargon behind and all the other stuff. Write it so that it makes sense. Like you're telling your kids. And then, like I said, not only does it have to be cohesive and make sense, but it also needs to be fact-based. So we're going to be using different sources to help back you up. And I talked a little bit about that in the last lecture. But basically, you're going to be working on putting your citations in line with whatever. And then on this last page, trust me, this will be the best thing that I've shared with you the whole class. When you start doing your references, you're going to be, thank goodness. This page tells you all the different ways, and your book gives you some instruction too. But this one in particular is awesome because it's already formatted for you. So if you have, say, a book versus a journal article versus a magazine article, they're formatted slightly different, and these are already done here as different samples, so you can kind of look up to see which one you have, and then you can use this format to enter that. So this is just one thing that I wanted to share with you. Let's move this one out of the way, and then I'm going to bring this one over. So one of the things you're going to be doing also during this class is you're going to be doing a number of what's called annotated bibliographies, and they're going to be, you're not doing it this week, I don't believe, but you're going to start gathering some research. And in the next lecture, a little bit more detail about how to do that, how to find quality sources, how to find information, because that can be very daunting. It doesn't have to be. And luckily we live in a digital age. When I was doing this kind of stuff, that was not an option. And it was all going to the library and pulling books out of the stacks. But you don't need to do that. Everything's digital. I'm going to show you how to do that next when you start doing a little bit digging. But you have to have your topic first before you can start pulling your facts and your research. And then what you're going to be doing for each journal article or reference that you're going to be using for your paper. And again, I'm only demanding that you use 5, but you're probably going to need a lot more. If your paper is comprehensive and really does your topic justice, you probably will have more than 5. In fact, most of the students that turned in their papers in the past had like over 20. So I would say that just kind of have that number in your head. If you only have 5, you're not going to have, it's not going to be as robust in making your point as if you have 15 to 20 sources. So leave that there. So what an annotated bibliography sounds like a big pain in the butt, but it actually, I had a professor that used to make me do them, and I hated doing these. But when I started to get the hang of it and I did it, I was so grateful that I did. So, and again, I'm going to go over in more detail about how to do the annotated bibliography when you need to turn them in, but I don't want it to be like a whole brand new thing. So I'm introducing what the concept is if you're not familiar. And basically what an annotated bibliography is a very quick summary that you can use to keep track of the articles that you pulled. Now, I know that sounds kind of weird because you're like, I already pulled the article and I found this research and I read the article. So like, why do I have to also write a summary of it? Well, let me tell you, when you're writing a paper and you are pulling multiple, you're going to go through and read some articles and then get halfway through and say, this isn't for me. This doesn't say what I wanted to say. And you're going to scrap it and you may not even use it. After looking at so many journal articles that are partially read or some that you've decided to keep or whatever, believe me when I tell you, it is very easy to lose track. You will not remember who said what and in what place, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're reading journal articles or you find research that make specific points that really back up what your thoughts are or points that you want to make in your paper, you want to be able to save those points. And not only that, you don't want to make extra work for yourself on the back end when you're finishing your paper and incorporating your citations and doing your references. You don't want to have to be going back and rereading all of your journal articles to find that one line and on what page it was that said the thing that you read 2 weeks ago, right? So this is a way for you to kind of keep track of all of that and know who said what and kind of keep everything very organized. You will thank me later. So when you turn them in, the reason why I have you turn them in is just that I want to make sure that you're doing them right and that you're finding sources that are quality sources that are, you're going in the right direction. So this is an annotated bibliography. This is a real annotated bibliography that I actually wrote when I was working on my dissertation and when at Abilene Christian University. And this is an article that I had pulled and did an annotated bibliography on. And the full title, and you use the same APA formatting even for a annotated bibliography or an AB. Sometimes I'm lazy and I'll call it an AB. So the title of this journal article that I found is called Christian Educators Use Prayer to Cope with Stress. And then it's put my name, etc. Now, the actual annotated bibliography is on the second page. You can see it's not very long. And basically what it looks like is you have your header here. You have the full title of the journal of the article, and then you also have the full citation here. So you have the authors, and again, it's going to be APA formatted. You want it to be properly formatted. And the reason why you're also doing that is going to be really helpful because then when you go back, you can just copy it and paste it right into your paper whenever you decide to use it. Done. You've already done the work. So you have the authors here, the year, the full title of the article, what journal it's from, the page numbers, etc. And then you also have a DOI link that goes directly back to the article so that at any time, if you want to see the full text of the article that you read, that you pulled this from, you can go right back to it. You have the link and it's saved for you. And then you're going to do usually like 1 or 2 paragraphs, generally 2, that summarize what the article was about. You're not going to rewrite the entire journal article because it's very dense with information, but you want to extract the information that is most important, 1, to the article, but 2, for you. What were the conclusions and the things that were illuminating out of this author or these authors, their research? What did their research show or do that is most important or critical for the point that you're trying to make? So this is what I wrote. Authors La Barbara and Hetzel state that teachers demonstrate significantly high levels and hypothesize ways that the act of prayer could impact these findings. They seek to extract data and feedback and posit those findings against existing research of the positive impact of prayer. Existing research indicates that at least half of all teachers leave before their 6th year in the field, many with both mental health diagnoses as well as physical disorders. Studies regarding the practice of prayer have shown it to have a positive impact in people's lives in the general population, and this study is no exception. This mixed methods study looked at the responses of 1,509 teachers in 38 countries. The quantitative data showed a positive correlation between the practice of prayer and the teacher's satisfaction, with 64% of respondents who practice prayer regularly indicating that they are fully committed to their vocation and plan to stay. The other portion of the study, the qualitative analysis, looked at the participants' perceived causes of work stress, with no statistically significant difference that the cause of work stress impacted the level of work stress itself. However, the quantitative results indicated that prayer is an effective coping mechanism for teachers. So I drilled it right down to the stuff that was most important. Now, why is this so critical to me? Well, I didn't include all of their statistics. I included the ones that I felt made the most sense and the points that I wanted to make. So, for example, if I wanted to include a statement in my paper that says that, research shows that teachers, more than 64% of people who pray regularly indicate that they're fully committed to their vocation. Well, that's a really positive statistic that shows the positivity of prayer. And so I can go back as I'm writing my paper, and I don't need to look at the entire journal all over again. I can just go to my annotated bibliography and I can extract this fact and put it into my paper, and I know exactly where it came from, and I can just put it right in there to back up my statement or what I want to say. So as you're going through, you're going to have your research written like this, and you're going to have these quick little summaries that tell you exactly what you need to know and the important things about the article. So I'm a big believer that I'm going to exit out of this because that's basically the end of that. So why is that important? Well, the reason why I'm sharing this part with you is I went to, it wouldn't be a me lecture without some kind of a story, right? I went to a training at my previous job, way before I started at Harvard or whatever. And they brought in this like guest, they do like these day-long retreats and things like that. And the person that was speaking was some kind of like organizational guru or whatever. And I don't remember a whole lot about the whole her whole talk and the things that she said. However, there was one part of it that I do remember that resonated with me that I have continued to use through this day. And for projects that are rather dense and things that are rather difficult, I find that this helps me so much, which is, she said, only touch a piece of paper one time. And that could be, of course, a physical piece of paper, but I also extend that to a digital piece of paper. In other words, we're sitting down to write a paper. We're gonna like take a look and we're gonna, read that journal article. And then we're going to put it to the side. And then we're going to go back to the journal article and say, oh, I read something about that in that journal article. And I'm going to go back and look at the journal article, and I'm going to have to skim through the whole thing and find that line that I was looking for. And then I'm going to find it and I'm going to write it down in a notebook because that line or that phrase I want to keep. And then I'm going to go back and I'm writing my paper and I'm saying, oh, you know what? I want to include that phrase. And so I'm going to go to my notebook and I'm going to take that line and I'm going to put it in my paper. But then I forgot which journal article or what page it came from. So now I got to go back to the journal article to find exactly where it was again, because I need to do the citation. And then when I'm doing my references, now, how many times have I touched that piece of paper? 4, 5? That's a lot of extra work. Whereas we could do a very clean, well done annotated bibliography which sounds like more work at the beginning, but saves us a whole lot of work at the end, and we don't have to be touching the same piece of paper over and over and over again. Extract all the information. When you find a piece of information that is relevant and that makes sense, summarize it, document what you have read, what you found, and then you have it ready to go for you. You don't have to keep doing this over and over and over again. It makes so much more reading. It makes so much more work for you as you go through this. So that was the main thing that I wanted to share with you today, because I want you to kind of get a sense of what we're going to be doing as we're going through the next couple of weeks. So now that you've done your brainstorming, you're doing some reading, hopefully the chapters in Booth, you've read a few chapters now, it's really clear about kind of outlining too, sort of what the paper looks like, and also this, hopefully cementing a lot of the stuff that I too am also saying. So for week 2, you're going to be submitting your preliminary research question. And like I said, I want you to give me some detail, give me some meat, so I know what you want to do your what your paper topic is. Don't be dismayed if I email you and say that we need to talk about it, because I guaranteed, and I did it myself when I was working on my thesis, when I've been working on my dissertation, I have done this. Everyone starts way too wide. You start with great intentions, and then you realize there's no way I'm going to be able to cover this topic in like 10 pages. That's just not going to happen. So you got to narrow it down so much. So guaranteed, most of you will probably not get the research question right off the bat. You'll probably need to tweak it a little bit to get it to a place where you're going to be able to write to your topic. So it's not a criticism if I come back at you and say, let's work on this a little bit. Let me help you. It's very normal. And I had professors that did it with me as well. That was like, you need to narrow the scope of your research a little bit. And I'm also being realistic about the kind of the time frame that we have. I wish we had all semester, but we don't. So I don't want you to be overwhelmed. And then week 3, we're going to be focusing all on those annotated bibliographies. So in preparation for that, what I'm going to be doing for your next lecture is I'm going to be talking about how to find good sources. And then we're going to start talking about structuring your paper and really getting to writing, because week 3 is really when the rubber hits the road, and you should be starting to put some, you should be putting content into your paper. So for week 2, you want to have your idea, and you want to have a really good outline. So, and that's partly why I am I'm going to be talking about the research articles. I'm going to show you how to do some research this week, because I want you to start to look. Even if you don't write your annotated bibliographies till next week, that's fine. But I find that like kind of some of the research also helps drive my paper, because unless I know what's out there and who's going to back up what I'm saying, that might change the scope of what I'm going to talk about. So I like to look first and read through some articles. It sparks some ideas for me, and it helps me tremendously. So I am going to do the same for you and show you. We're going to do a little bit of a walkthrough in the next lecture, and I'm going to show you how to access journal articles, what to look for, what is a quality source, what stuff to leave behind, and sort of like how to pick out the important pieces so that you're not spending a ton of time reading pages and pages and pages, because that is not the goal, to overwhelm ourselves with work. The goal is to, discover a new and interesting idea and maybe learn a little bit from it. So that's what we're focused on. See if there's anything I missed. Yeah, like I said, just focus on the brainstorming and getting your stuff down on paper. Get your outline together. If you really take a moment and go to the Purdue OWL website, there's a lot of great templates and samples about outlines there, and as well as like structuring the paper. If you want some more ideas on how to do that, I don't specifically have outlines for papers because I feel like everyone does that differently. And some people a little bit more casual about it. Some people prefer to just work off of the paper template, which is also fine. Some people literally take the template of the paper and then just like start writing notes in the, on the side, like next to the content and stuff like that. Whatever works for you. There's no really right or wrong way to do it. It just has to make sense in your brain so that you keep track of like where you're going and keep your thoughts clear. And also think about, how do you want your paper or your topic to progress? How do you see this happening? Do you see it happening like in a chronological thing? Do you see it happening like in order of priority? So in other words, you can have subtopics that are like, this is the most important point I want to make, so I'm going to make it first. And then here's another point I want to make, but it's not quite as important. Other people will do their paper like, oh, I'm going to do it like, first this happens, and then this happens, and then that happens, and this is the likely. So depending on your topic, your paper is going to have a different flow. So the outline is going to look different for that too. So think about sort of what the conversation is going to look like, what your paper conversation is going to be, and then that outline will support that. So lots of stuff to think about so far. If you have questions, I will be not only, I'll hopefully be posting some comments in the chat section if you need anything. I will respond to any questions that are in the LMS that you post. And of course, you can email me at any time and I'll answer that too. And I look forward to talking more with all of you. Have a great week. Take care. Bye.